we are having wonderful sessions. Okay. Thank you once again for your interest in attending our program. Thank you all. Just within couple of minutes, we will have the session. Okay. Good afternoon to all respected participants, and we have had a wonderful participation from various states. That is from Tamil Nadu, northern states, and Karnataka, Telangana. And, you can see the participants from other states, Madhya Pradesh, Delhi, and all these things. Really, we had a wonderful encouragement from your side, because we had almost 200 plus registrations we had. Due to this, the examination schedules in particularly in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, some of them are unable to join today. Okay, let me just introduce today's resource persons. Before going for this one, just now I had a phone from Professor Sehri sir. He will join. Some network issues there. He will join in within 5 minutes. Okay. Let me first, before starting of the first resource person session, let me introduce about the Gitanjali Institute of Science and Technology. We had 6 branches of engineering, and ranging from mechanical engineering, civil engineering, electronics and communication engineering, electrical and electronics, computer science, and we had artificial intelligence and machine learning also. And it is my, now I will come on to the actual the process of our the program. It is my sincere thanks to extend my heartful thanks to General Manoj Kumar Bidal, Executive Director, National Institute of Disaster Management, and Professor Santosh Kumar sir, Head GIDER and DRR, National Institute of Disaster Management, and Mr. Ali Haider, Junior Consultant from National Institute of Disaster Management, for kindly accepting our proposal. Our proposal, as you have observed, we have had some connectivity in between the technology and the disaster management and the present pandemic situation. Now, the government may consider this COVID pandemic also maybe one of the major disasters. How our technology is going to rule out, or how our technology is going to solve the problems of disaster management. That we had yesterday, we had wonderful sessions from Dr. P.C. sir, that is about the drone technology and how the radars are being used in disaster management we have. And we had another wonderful session from Dr. M. Dwarakanath sir, has given how we have to tackle the waste management of COVID pandemic particularly. It is a very interesting phenomenon, and it is a eye opener for disaster management, because the COVID waste is more than, it is deadly than the coronavirus. From his analysis, from Mr. M. Dwarakanath sir, who is former director, Department of Science and Technology and Environment, has explained quite interestingly, and how the society is being affected by this COVID waste. That is, whatever the extracts we are having from the patients, or whatever the extracts from the hospitals, how they are going to make problems to the society as well as the world. That has wonderfully explained. And finally, the discussions are going on with Dr. P. Srihari sir, is from NIT Surathkal sir. Sir has explained quite interestingly about how the drone technology is being used in disaster management as well in the COVID pandemic situation, to identify the persons, to identify where the highly affected areas and how low affected areas everything has been explained. Today we are going to have 3 resource persons. Dr. P. Srihari sir, actually today Dr. B.S. Raghavendra sir from NIT Surathkal sir has to arrive as one of the resource person, but due to some important, that is due to his health conditions, Dr. P. Srihari sir again is going to have another session today also. After that, Dr. P. Lokesh Kumar sir from Jipmer Pondicherry is going to have his session and what are the safety measures and everything. And another important resource person, Dr. Karthik Semukurti sir. He's a very knowledgeable person in image processing, and he's a PhD from IIT Madras. I will go ahead with whenever sir session is going to commence, so then I will read out sir's profile. He's one of the another great resource person today we are having.
Bashagaru, I am there.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. And our resource person, Dr. P. Srihari, sir, Assistant Professor, NIT Surathkal, sir, Department of Physics, has arrived into our session. Thank you once again, sir, for your acceptance to act as a resource person, though your hectic schedule, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem, Bashagaru. It's always a pleasure to associate, especially interact with people. So, thank you. And let me, today I'll just, like our yesterday's resource person spoke, I'll just today try to do a general presentation. So, give me, yeah.
Sir, sorry for the interruption, sir.
Yeah.
Welcome to Dr. Karthik Semukurti, sir, and Dr. Lokesh Kumar, sir, from Jipmer Pondicherry. Hearty welcome, sir. Hearty welcome, both of you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Karthik sir is also there in our session, and Dr. Lokesh Kumar, sir, also joined. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
So,
okay, sir.
Yeah.
Shall we start the session?
Yeah, sure. Let me share the screen. So as I told you, this session is actually, it's not mine. A colleague of mine is supposed to give, he's not well. I'm trying to occupy his slot and then trying to deliver. So it is like see, yesterday there was a discussion about the pandemic, and then I'll try to relate a few things because we all know we are in 2020 now. So in 1920, in 1820, so if you go into 1890, 1820, and 1919, 1920, and 2019, 1920. We all know it all started in 2019. So you can see the gap of 100 years. So this 100 years, every 100 years there is going to be, this was the news that we saw in our, the news. So what has changed in this, because 200 years ago when the, I exactly didn't remember, the plague was the outbreak and Spanish flu was the outbreak, now the COVID-19. What has changed in terms of technology, science? Science and technology, what has changed? So if you observe, there is a significant amount of change compared with this 200 years gap. So in 1820, even the medical sciences were not advanced. And especially since the topic is how the ICT is helping the COVID-19. This is the topic that needs to be addressed in this one. So part of ICT only IoT also came into picture. But if you see, if you observe, because in my lifetime, I am now 44-year-old. So when I graduated in 2000, during my BTech days, I used to see a STD booth. So when I started my career in 2003, just the 1G mobile phones, a mobile phone with an antenna is out. You can see that's a 2G, 1G. 1G we haven't used that much. The 2G only we used. So you can see the slight shift in 2000. If you come to the 2007 or 8, precisely, I do not know the timelines, but if you exactly see 2010, somewhere around that time, the 3G came into picture. Somewhere around 2015, 16 onwards, the 17, you can see the 4G being deployed, and then you can see 4G networks are available. Now we are in 2020, the 5G has come into picture. What has changed? What has changed from 1G before mobile phone or cellular mobile phone communication existed? What was the mode of communication? We were using simply public switching telephone network. Through public switching telephone network, a landline was predominantly used, and then there was nothing like mobile phone kind of thing, because that kind of concept was there only in US and Europe, USA and Europe. They used, European countries, they used this kind of technology for their communications, civilian communications. Maybe military communications, they have some kind of other kind of things. So how this, because I will come to the actual topic, how the information communication technology helped the COVID-19 outbreak in the sense that assisted the humanity in overcoming that one. So there are ifs and buts are there. So yesterday there was something like the speaker was telling, don't trust the Google, don't trust the WhatsApp. Despite that, there is a good things about these things, because you are going to get the, see, the SMS was not there until, 2003 or 2004. That means data started coming in the form of short messaging services. The initial mobile phone services were only simply short messaging services and voice calls. There were days we were paying for incoming calls. Incoming was not free. So you can see how the things have changed. Incoming was chargeable. Charges were there heavily, because outgoing was less. When there were days where outgoing was less compared with incoming calls. People are not simply lifting when some calls have come. From those days to literally free. See, you can see the geo revolution, how the other competitors went off, and all that market strategies anyway had happened. But what is addition to that one is now data. Data communications is everywhere. So data communication is there with the small smart devices, the small mobile phones. The mobile phones are equipped with operating systems now. Earlier days, only we have seen that in the desktop. So this information communication technology is revolutionized in such a fashion that we are connected like anything. So main thing is this connected. So olden days, you can see the other record industry and the television kind of black and white came and the color came. Now you are talking about 4K, 3K, HD TV technology, and then that is also smart. That means embedded with operating systems, and you are able to see the YouTube, you are able to see the Amazon Prime, you are able to see, because by seeing all these kind of things, you have seen a shift when you go back to the 1919 during the First World War, where the Spanish flu evolved out of the bunkers in the First World War, World War I. So from that to the COVID-19 outbreak, where the origins are exactly not known, but some say a lot of theories are available for that. but WHO survey cleared that it could have come from animal market or between a transmitting media. Some transmitting media must have been there before it got into the humans. So this virus is so outrageous, and then it is causing a lot of, because the virus is so widespread, and then you are unable to see, it's an invisible enemy, because the enemy is invisible and you have to fight it. You know, all the education system, all the systems have got disrupted, because you can see the economy is going in a very, very, very bad shape. So, but still, the kind of the authorities in India, even the controlling COVID outbreak 1, phase 1, and the phase 2, and the anticipating phase 3. So India is second to none, because some say that these people are responsible, those people are responsible. But in fact, we made our own vaccinations due to that, and then a lot of people are getting vaccinated, because you could imagine some of the South American countries are really struggling, and they are buying from us. See, we are in that sense, we are far superior when compared with most of the countries, and we are almost standing head to head with the advanced countries where these vaccinations are originally developed. So we are almost gone into that state. Now coming to this technology, you can see the technology, whenever it is there, we try to use that. So while using that, the government has come up with the CoWIN. Yesterday, your principal sir was mentioning, I was simply noting down, the CoWIN portal. You can see I got first vaccination done on June 1st. And then I got a certificate for that. And then my second vaccination is August 28th, it is due. Both are institute only arranged. And then I need to register this CoWIN portal. You know, the unique identification Aadhaar number that that is being used to track the people how many people are getting vaccinated. This is a very wonderful system, you see, because immediately the one-time password is coming. So how this all this is happening, because we are not thinking about it, because it became so integral part of it. It became so integral part of it. We are not even putting a thought how this is being possible, because initially internetworking came. So internetworking originally is only, because I still use it to remember, I need to go to a shop where the email can be accessed, because email is so a kind of a scarce issue that not many people can use it. And then even if you have an email ID, that itself is a very
Hi friends.
Hello. Somebody is
Bye
calling.
friends.
Hello. Basha Garu, some nonsense is happening. Please try to stop that.
Hello. All the participants are requested to mute yourselves.
So from starting from that email, which was
so, if you are not interested, you can leave the session.
Yeah. So starting from that email communication which had happened, from the things that you can just see, because how these revolutionized the thing, and then how you are able to, because why I am telling all this is CoWIN portal is one example of a beautiful system evolved out of this ICT. So people say information communication system are different. They are not, because they are integrated, because now you can see the data communications. Earlier we studied it as a kind of separate subject, data communications, data networks. All those are now became a single entity now. So data communications, data networks. So you can you now see, because now you are simply transmitting the images and video. So images and video. So can you imagine this thing in second generation mobile phones or the first generation mobile phone? Even for that matter, third generation mobile phone also, the speed of which it is happening is very, very limited. Now with 4G, it is happening like anything, because you know WhatsApp and Facebook or social media systems, all that, because people are sharing the information, people are trying to communicate with one another, so-called social networks, the social media, All these are outbreak of this information communication technology that has evolved our last 3 decades, 30 years. So I am just talking about how this information technology is helping to, because you know Arogya Setu app, I also one Arogya Setu app, you know what it has given, because that one, there were some days where nobody knows the truth, and everybody in the first wave nation went for around 50 days lockdown, and everybody was scared, because this has a lot of other implications. You know, our psychological health also getting affected due to that, and then there is no, what is happening we do not know. But the Arogya Setu app definitely helped the people who ever downloaded, then giving some information associated with where the containment zones are there, because a lot of new words also evolved: lockdown, containment zone, then the sanitization, because these were not being heard by the general public as often as that of the medical personnel and the specialist people. We got used to these kind of things. So it's now a different world, because world has changed. A different world is we are now living, because we are now, even now we are not free to go anywhere, because you know, no, earlier we were wearing the clothes and then going. Now without mask also, if you are going, you are feeling like something is missing while you are going out. So it's like yesterday the kind of mask sanitization, mask social distancing and sanitization, MSS. The MSS philosophy almost got into the integral part of it. So anyway, this is a kind of challenge, but you must acknowledge the revolution that has happened, because all this has started in 1948 by a great scientist known as Claude Edward Shannon. The Shannon theory only made most of the modern digital communication possible, and therefore we are able to do a lot of things that are otherwise not possible in our case. So this is the one which we brought into the scenario, and because I am not taking much time, because the other scheduled speakers are available. So what I am trying to bring in is, if you go back and then see my first slide, so compared with the 200 years scenario, where the plague outbreak has happened and then followed by the Spanish flu, because in all these kind of things, considering the population of those days, we were not able to control the death rate at that time, because it is completely beyond the control of the people. But now, if you observe globally, because of the technology, and the information communication that is happening, so both the ill effects, good effects are there, because there was a cartoon few months ago. There were two people simply walking on the ground. They are so happy. And then there was another person just got so much scared and asked, this person asked these two people, why you are so happy, what happened? Then they told, we are happy because we don't have television at our home, and we are not watching any news and any kind of thing. This news hype also, because I am not degrading anyone, but some of the news, so whatever the news that is there, and magnifying it to 100 times or 1,000 times and then putting across is not a good solution in this pandemic situation. But some people are doing it, and some things are happening. So both the effects are there, because I'm not telling the information communication technology is completely useful or not completely useless, such kind of thing. So if you use it with wisely, if you use it with a judicious choice, because you know the ill effect of mobile phone, again, it's a microwave, 850 megahertz it is transmitting and receiving. And if you always use, what will happen? Your the cells get affected. So that is a proven theory. But what happened now? It's like a lot of other people got involved. So it is not coming out. But there are people who lost their hearing, and they lost a lot of issues that if you are continuously using the mobile phone at that frequency, you get a lot of ill effects associated with that radio frequency, this thing. So that we have to be careful when we use it, because so became integral part of it, but we have to use in a wise sense, but we cannot avoid it also because it is now almost became like a mask. The mobile phone has become 10 years ago only it became an integral part of it, and then day by day it is increasing. So we have to ensure what needs to be read and how much time, because maybe some old habits, book reading, because everybody now reading digital reading only. So we might have to go back to such days and then do the things associated with that. And then this is simply, I just wanted to bring some information because the lecture is scheduled based on the unavailability of another resource person. So I just wanted to bring it. If you compare the three centuries story, I think the current situation with the advancement of technology and the advancement of internet, advancement of mobile cellular communication, or advancement of satellite television, advancement of you call it telemedicine advanced, because many of the people are taking advices are the solutions from online mode only, because online education has become reality. We can see the advantages that is being gained without being in touch with the people you are trying to transmit the information. Dissemination of knowledge is happening, intellectual stimulation is happening, and then lot of information sharing and the meetings, because earlier days people used to travel. It's no need to travel because this multimedia communication, whatever is happening, is a kind of solution for many of the situations. So you can, because people are working from home also, you can just see the shift in paradigm with this kind of situation where everywhere the information communication technology is playing a significant role. So Bhasha Garu, because other speakers are waiting, so I don't want to talk anything more now. If any questions are there, I'll just address later after the other speakers speak.
Okay.
So, if any questions are there, you please, because if there is no formality like yesterday, any questions are there, I take, and then because I have another grade meeting is also there. If you allow me, then I'll take the questions now only and then finish it up.
Okay. Dear participants, if you have any queries regarding
in general, because
yes, in general,
no blame game here.
Yeah. Okay. You can post in chat box also, because some of them have network issues or something else. Yesterday, some of them have told. No, if you have kept in chat box, it will be great for us.
It is just some kind of, you can give a thought about how this has changed, because if you are not involved in this technology also, you can just think about 20, 30 years, what was the scenario in 1990s, in 2000, the millennium, what is the scenario? A decade later, what is the scenario? 2 decades later, after the millennium. Hello? Hello?
Hello, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir, Dr. Srihari, sir.
Okay, sure.
Thank you very much for your
thank you. Yeah.
Insights of the evolution of
no problem. So
mobile and cellular communications.
In an emergency situation, I spoke.
Okay. Thank you for accepting, sir. Really, actual resource person.
Bhashagar, thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
So I'll leave the meeting now.
Sure. Okay, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are very much grateful to you, sir. Thank you. Okay. Dear participants, now it is the time to have the second session from Dr. P. Lokesh Kumar, sir. Sir, I welcome you, sir, Dr. P. Lokesh Kumar, sir. With your kind permission, just I will read out your brief profile so that our participants will get the profile of the second research person. Dr. P. Lokesh Kumar, sir, did his MBBS in Kurnool Medical College, one of the reputed government medical colleges in Andhra Pradesh. He did his MS in ENT from the famous institute, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, AIIMS, New Delhi. And he has done his senior resident in another, the renowned organization, PGI MER, Chandigarh. And he has worked as assistant professor in the Department of ENT in Medical College. and he has done his fellow in skull base and head neck surgery in Christian Medical College, Vellore, Tamil Nadu from July 2018 to 2020. At present, Dr. P. Lokesh Kumar sir, working as assistant professor in the Department of ENT in JIPMER, Pondicherry, is a famous premier institution in medical sciences. And coming on to his academic achievements, he achieved district second rank in SSC examinations in 2002. His thesis work has been selected for gold medal, and his papers are also being accepted as best papers in 32nd National Conference of Neurotologic and equally Biometric Society of India in 2005. Really, we have a wonderful person to have our this session, sir. And Dr. Lokesh Kumar sir published more than 20 articles in reputed national and international journals. Dr. Lokesh Kumar conducted and participated hands-on in cadaveric demonstration and live surgical workshop in rhinoplasty and face held in October 2011 in AIIMS, New Delhi. And Dr. Lokesh Kumar sir organized 14th National Conference of Foundation for Head Neck Oncology at Chandigarh in September 2014, held by PGIMER Chandigarh under the guidance of Professor N.K. Pang. Sir has conducted and attended so many workshops and CMEs and conferences. Really, I am heartily welcoming you, Mr. Dr. Lokesh Kumar sir. Our participants are waiting for your session, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. You can start the session, sir. Dr. Lokesh Kumar sir. Sir, are you able to hear me, sir? Dr. Lokesh Kumar sir. Sir.
You all hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Actually, my internet is not very stable. So, do you hear now? Do you hear now?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I'm sharing my slides. Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So the topic I chose for this workshop or webinar is safe practices and responsibilities as Indian citizens in mitigating COVID-19 pandemic. Dear friends, good afternoon. A nice introduction. Thank you very much, Dr. Mehboob Basha. And by now, we all must be aware of what the safe practices for COVID-19 are, as we have all been through first and second waves. And I percent of us are aware. It's imperative and it's remember the safe practices once again to avoid being infected and to protect ourselves and our beloved ones. So as this workshop webinar has a lot of non-medical people, my slides are put in very clear and understandable way. So I'm not going into the details of medical treatment of COVID-19. So it will be a social topic. So please bear with me for next 20 minutes. So as we all know, COVID-19, it has started in Wuhan, China in December 2019. It's caused by SARS-CoV-2, which is animal virus. It has there were actually anecdotal reports. When you look back into the history in 2020, early 2020. There were around 14 scientists who are being infected by this virus after doing surgery on a COVID patient. So it implies that it is very infectious and it is very contagious virus. so far we have detected till now. In March 2020, WHO has reported it as a global threat and it has a pandemic. So far, 45 million deaths happened across the world. And in India, officially, we have 4.5 lakh deaths reported by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So there is a famous saying, maybe you must have known this, you cannot defeat your enemy until you know what to and until you know who they are. That means you should know the enemy first to beat him. So the characteristics of this virus are, as I told you, it's very highly infectious. That is highly contagious. It spreads. If one person is infected, it spreads to the 10% who are around them if you do not follow the safety measures. And now the third wave, we are at the concern about third wave, and the third wave is mainly because of Delta variant. If at all it happens to occur, it is because of Delta variant, which is furthermore very contagious. It is 2 times more contagious than the previous alpha virus and other strains, other variants. Other characteristic of the person, maybe a lot of you are students here. It may not harm you. It will just infect you. But the problem is the vulnerable groups. Who are the vulnerable groups? People with diabetes, people with heart diseases, chronic kidney diseases, chronic lung diseases. All those people are very vulnerable to this disease, and they'll succumb to this illness if at all they get it. So you know the symptoms of this, symptoms of COVID-19. This takes, and you'll have only discoloration of the toes. All those things can be there in these new strains, in new strains of viruses. So with this brief introduction, I am coming into this the safe practices. We know this is an individual and a corporate effort to mitigate this virus and to curtail the spread of this virus. So each and every individual or profession should identify their own hazard or risk levels, and they should customize their own safe practices. For example, a teacher with the children at school may not have the same risk as that of a banker, and the banker may not have the same risk like that of a healthcare professional or health protein, and what your profession is. That's why you're depending upon your risk level, you have to you have to categorize, and customer level, you should follow these 3
Sir, unmute yourself, Dr. Lokesh Kumar, sir. Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry for the trouble. So 3 rules for safety: they are always wearing mask and maintaining social distance from others while wearing the mask or without mask, and washing hands thoroughly with soap and water. These are the 3 golden rules that are applicable for each and every individual in this pandemic. So coming to the proper way of wearing the mask, we are so all these ways are not proper, and this is the proper way. If you come to the proper way of wearing mask, the mask should be like this or like this. Sir, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
So could you please reshare your screen, sir? We are unable to see your screen.
This one? This one?
Yeah, the slides. The slides, we are unable to see your slides.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. Please reshare it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for reminding. Can you see it now?
Perfect, sir.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, perfect.
Okay, so I'm talking about the proper way of wearing mask, and we all have practiced these improper methods. And these are all some of the improper ways that one follows wearing the mask. Some people they'll put only on the chins, and some people they cover only the part of nose or below the nose, and some people cover only nose without covering the mouth. These are all the improper ways, and people who wear this kind of follow these methods are at risk of getting infection. So the proper method would be this one. As you see here, you have to cover from the dorsum of the nose, the bridge of the nose, from here, from bony part of the nose till below the chin. And when you breathe, you have to breathe through the mask, and it's not below and above the mask. So this is the proper way. And when you are using the specs, always it's better to use put the mask below the spectacles so that it won't fog. That is the main purpose of putting the mask like this. So these are the other practices. So when you come, you should not touch your face when you are in a workplace. Like, see, as Indians, we should avoid it. Other things are biting nails. It's not a practice just in India. Across the world, people practice this kind of habits. So these are riskier habits in this pandemic. So just I am stressing it. These are the individual level, some improper habits which put you at risk of getting infection. When you come to the corporate level means group. As a group, it is always safer to have gatherings at open air spaces rather than in closed spaces. So you can see here, this is one of the weddings or some gatherings which is happening, and people are very closely packed inside a room, and these people all are at risk if one of them is being infected with COVID-19. So it's always better to have an open space gathering where there is proper ventilation. Thereby, whatever the infection that is coming, whatever the virus that is coming out of infected person will easily be dissipated or cleaned off by fresh air. So another safe practice is it's always better to have farther distance when you are conversing with people. Like when you, other one is the conversation time. Conversation time should be less than 5 to 10 minutes if you are conversing without wearing a mask or a proper protective gear. So when you are wearing a mask, it's you can speak for some time. But if you are not wearing a mask, it's always better to restrict your timing to less than 5 to 10 minutes. And now the safe practices at workplace. are back to work preparedness. We are all now back to our work in workplaces at many places, except for some educational institutions. Now, again, I am stressing on this part that depending upon your risk level, you have to stratify or you have to customize your own safe practices. Like this kind of shields, glass shields, you may have seen at banks or other offices. These kind of shields are enough, are required when you are in a corporate setup. Other thing, this has become a popular one. This is called COVID robes, and these robes have become popular in UK and US, and they are using in school environment. So COVID robe with intermittent beadings. So this will give the distance between two individuals. So similarly, this is the one what we practice in our setup. So when we are operating on a COVID patient, we have customized these drapes. You can see the drape here, and surgeon operating underneath the drapes, so that whatever the spillage or air that is coming out of this space, that won't be contaminating the surgeon. So this is the work that we have done in our department, and for this, this has got published in United Kingdom, Cambridge University. Yeah, this work is recognized by them. So coming to safe practices at home isolation, so it's very important to have a separate room for the infected patient, and the room should have adequate ventilation. And one should not allow their children or old people to come near them, because they are at very higher risk of being infected and being going into a serious condition. So the infected person should have the separate things, like having food and separate toilet. This is about infected patient in home isolation. Whereas coming to safe practices for helping personnel, so for the personnel who is helping the patient, healthier. So you should take more adequate water and good food. Coming to responsibilities as Indian citizens, Baksha, can you hear me?
Sir, shall I ask you a question?
Yeah, please go on.
Yeah,
So,
thank you very much, sir. Sir, I'm working in an institution and I sit in an isolated place. Is it necessary to wear the mask continuously? Or can I remove the mask for some time and wear whenever any person come to me, to my office to interact?
Yeah. It's a good question, actually. So,
Sir, your voice is not audible, sir. Sir, your voice is not audible. So, Dr. Karthik, sir, am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're audible. I'm able to hear you. Probably it's the connectivity from
Yes.
Lokesh sir's end.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, you need to unmute yourself. You're muted.
Sorry, I am very sorry. My network is not stable. So, I told you the part of answer. Can you could you? Hello.
No, sir, we could not hear you.
Yeah, sorry. I'm extremely sorry. So, what I was telling you is, so if your room is properly ventilated, just for the aerosol concern, it's all right to have the mask only when a person comes in. But if if your room is not properly ventilated, that means if it doesn't have open doors or it doesn't have a good HEPA filter in your air condition, then it's better to wear a mask in a workplace, because we do not know.
Thank you.
So you got the answer?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got it. Thank you very much.
Sir, another question, sir.
Yeah, please.
Sir, for example, if one person in a family got affected by COVID and he is isolated in a separate room, can we use the same common washing machine for that affected person and the common person?
Okay. So you are asking about whether I can put my cloths along with the infected cloths. That is your question,
yes, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And putting lots of detergent into it, the virus will be killed. Yes. Virus will be killed there itself. But what about your hands? You should be thoroughly washing your hands once you are handling the infected cloths. So if you are practicing this, then I don't think there is a risk of getting infection.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, detergent is a good antiviral agent, and it will kill most of the times. But you should put it in a good quantity. That's all.
Yes. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, a quick question from my end. From the medical research point of view, how far these variants are well understood? To what extent it is well understood? If it is well understood, can we prevent the further variants that are going to come in future? Or
yeah. So it's actually a high-end question, I can say. These variants, actually, what are these variants? These are the mutations that are happening in the viruses. So we all know viruses are just the genetic particles. Like some viruses are DNA viruses, some viruses are mRNA viruses, and some viruses are virions. So coming to this COVID is a DNA virus, and it's a respiratory virus. And as we all know, respiratory viruses like flu virus and even before this SARS-CoV-1, MERS virus, all these viruses, they have a tendency to mutate themselves. What is meant by mutation? Mutation means I'm wearing this kind of shirt now, and tomorrow I'll wear another shirt. So that's what the same thing happens with the virus. So it will just change the virus, the genetic pattern, so that it will not be easily handy for the immune system of a host to deal with. So that's why that will become a new thing again, and host will at the riskier side. So we cannot do anything with the mutations, and by far the science has not developed so that we can stop the mutations. But if the mutation is very slow, you can actually invent the remedies for the concerned mutant, like what is happening now: alpha, beta, gamma variants, all those things. You have the same spike protein. So Covishield is much more effective for all the previous viruses. And Delta Plus, we do not know what is its spike protein. So less of the genomic knowledge is available right now. That's what I hope I could answer you.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Rajesh, so Rajesh sir is having some doubt on what about the third wave is asking. Third part.
Sorry, sir. I can't hear you. Sorry, I'm extremely sorry for that. Can you repeat the question?
Sir, one of the participants, Mr. M. Rajesh sir, asking about what are the things going to happen in third wave?
Third wave, these waves and all are just the predictions. So we cannot exactly tell what will happen in third wave. But by the numbers that are increasing now and by the death rates that are happening right now across the country, it's most likely that third wave will be there between October to December or January of this next year. And how severely and how badly it will affect, will it affect like second wave? We do not know. And will this third are highly lethal or highly virulent? That we do not know, because we don't have proper scientific data till.
If you are having any doubts regarding about situation, please ask any queries to Dr. P. Lokesh. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. M. Lokesh, sir.
Thank you.
Really, we had a wonderful session from you. What are the insights of the COVID pandemic and what are the mutations and everything? We had some knowledge. Really, it is wonderful to see you because you are from the premier institution, and when I am reading your profile, I have felt very happy. Doctor is going to have in our country. Really, we are happy to see you, sir. Thank you very much for accepting my request and to come over onto our 3-day training program, which is being organized by National Institute of Research Management and once again, thank you, sir, on behalf of Gitani. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I leave, sir?
Thank you. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all participants. Thank you.
Okay. Some network issue is from my side also. That is the reason why I have not been connected to now is the time to have a final session of the two of present and future mitigation of this management and COVID pandemic using this technology. And we are having Dr. Karthik Simputi, sir. We heartily welcome to Karthik Simputi, sir, once again. I think Karthik sir is
thank you, sir.
Karthik sir. Okay. Just with your kind permission, I will read out your brief profile, sir. Dr. Karthik Simputi received BTech degree in Electronics and Communication Engineering from Vidya Jyoti Institute of Technology, Hyderabad in 2008. In GATE 2008, he secured All India 135th rank with 99.61%. In 2010, he received his MTech degree in Visual Information Processing and Embedded System Specialization from the premier institution IIT Kharagpur. He worked as an assistant professor in engineering college in Hyderabad for 6 months. After that, he has joined in prestigious institution, IIT Madras, and he has finished his PhD degree under the supervision of eminent professor N. Rajgopalan sir from IIT Madras in 2007. He worked as research scientist in TCS Innovation and Research Labs until November 2020. Currently, Dr. Karthik Senpati sir is working as a postdoctoral research associate in Lincoln Agribiotics and Agri-Robotics, Lincoln Institute of Agri-Food Technology, United Kingdom. His research interests are the areas of computer vision and image processing with specific focus on scattering media analysis and industrial automation. Sir is having good academic experience as well as industry. That's why we have requested sir to associate ourselves to meet the requirements of the industry as well as the academy. And one more thing about Karthik Senpati sir, I can say he is passionate towards the social service also, and his intention is to become an entrepreneur to serve the society. And he's from LinkedIn, I have got the information that Sir's aim is to at least 1,000 students has to be supported by him in near future. Thank you, sir. Your vision is so good and it is a societal need also. Thank you. And Dr. Karthik Senpati sir, I am welcoming you to our 3-day training program as a wonderful resource person. We have wonderful feedback in earlier sessions also in our ACT, IST refresher and induction program of it. Thank you, sir. Start the sessions.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm switching off my video to save the bandwidth. The internet so a bit poor, but yeah, just to avoid any kind of an interruption at the time being. However, you'll be able to still see my screen. I'll just share my screen. Just give me a second. Is my screen visible? Can somebody confirm, please?
Yes, sir. It is under process.
Just let me know once it is visible so that I can handle at the end of my session. Right. So this is a humanoid robot actually, right? So this comes from a company called Hanson Robotics. Okay. So it was observed that many healthcare workers lost life while serving at the hospital during the pandemic. So actually, nothing is better than human touch and feel. But in the situations like COVID-19 pandemic, where the disease spreads from one to other very fast, right? Especially for the kind of Delta variants which Dr. Lokesh was mentioning, right? So it spreads very fast. Okay, the human touch is important while treating a patient, but at the same time, we need to see to what extent we can have the human touch and feel, and to what extent maybe we can use something like human robots to save this is just to save the life of the healthcare workers and avoid them to be exposed to the risk to the maximum possible extent. Right. So this slide actually is shows the humanoid robot called Grace. Okay, and it's developed by Hanson Robotics and designed for the healthcare market to interact and comfort the elderly and isolated people, especially those suffering during the coronavirus pandemic. Because Dr. Lokesh was also put up some pictures of interacting with people, right? So the people who are helping the patients, it can be a healthcare workers, it can be the family personnel, but if a patient is in some kind of a scenario where neither a healthcare worker or a family person can go very often and frequently to interact with the patient, then it will be very, very difficult, and mentally it would be very stressful for that specific patient. Okay. So this humanoid robot Grace was designed by Hanson Robotics, as I said, right? So it was mainly for interacting with the comforting to do the basic diagnosis, something like a temperature measurement or capturing the mood of a person, right? So by using the cameras which are fitted onto the chest of this humanoid robot, right? So to do some kind of a preliminary diagnosis or to do some kind of a preliminary measurements, which the presence of a healthcare worker might not be needed in such kind of an activities, right? So it is yet to be launched during some time in the market, right? So it's almost developed. Maybe you can look in this website called Reuters.com to know more information about this specific humanoid robot called Grace. Okay, and this is another milestone that was achieved very recently by i2u2 Robot, and this is a kind of a telepresence robot where you just buy the base, okay, and you can use your mobile phone and fix this mobile phone to this specific robot, and then install the app provided by this company in order to access this robot. Okay, and it's almost like when the COVID infected patient is in a hospital, need a constant attention, and it would be sometimes it will be again, right? So the doctors need not be present, but if a doctor wants to know the status of a patient, and what the best the doctor can do is he or she can use this specific robot and operate this tele robot and send this robot to that specific person or a patient into that specific ward, and then interact with that patient directly through this specific robot, right? So this has been used by few hospitals in India and has been widely used in few countries and abroad. While I was working at TCS also, they have been working in building these kind of a telepresence robots, right? So this is another interesting research that has happened during this pandemic time in the field of robotics and vision. And and another interesting research direction is Professor Alexander Wong from the University of Waterloo, along with his team, created one of the first COVID data sets, which consists of chest X-ray images of various patients, right? So in the right, if you see here, the image A, these both images are taken out from the COVID-X data set. And the image A is of non-COVID infection type, and the image B is a COVID infection type, right? And this is a brief architecture of COVID-19. Considering the wide range of participants today on this call, I'm not going to the in-depth details of this specific architecture. And in case if anybody is keen about understanding more about this architecture, we can connect offline and further discuss and see if I can be of some help to you in understanding more about this specific architecture. Okay. And if you see here visually, it's quite difficult to understand the difference between a non-COVID infection and a COVID infection. And you need an expert in order to identify what kind of an infection is a person is suffering from or infected with, but just by seeing this X-ray, right? So we need some kind of an experts that are that needs to be available. And fortunately, the AI, the artificial intelligence, the field of artificial intelligence has matured today to a level where it can train these systems. It can by using this chest X-ray images as an input, and then the output will be the output of the system. It says whether a person, a chest X-ray, when a chest X-ray is fed to the system, the output it says is whether a person is normal or it is a kind of a non-COVID infection or a COVID infection. It does some kind of a classification for the given chest X-ray, right? So this will be very, very helpful for the doctors to do some kind of a preliminary diagnosis and attending to the patients with further investigations like RT-PCR if needed. Okay, and if RT-PCR is not needed or any other forms of further diagnosis are not needed. Probably a doctor can take a call by using these kind of systems. And there is another area which I personally worked on and which got published very recently in a top biomedical conference called ISPI 2021 in January, which happened in February. And so this idea, it is very well connected to pandemic, the disaster management. I'll tell you how it is. But let me tell about what this specific work is all about first. So like teleoperated robots, teleoperated surgeries have been gaining popularity very recently, right? So, and this de-smoking solution that we proposed for laparoscopic surgeries. So during the surgery, what happens is during the surgery, there is some kind of a tissue dissection that's going to happen, and it generates a kind of a smoke, and that hindrances the visibility, and this smoke hindrances the visibility, and it makes it poor for a doctor to take any further actions, and probably it can slow down the process of the surgery, or it can be a very challenging situation for the doctor to proceed forward. So what is the idea here is we have proposed an approach where we take a surgical video as a feed, as an input feed, and we give out a video which is free of smoke, actually, right? So currently the solution that we built here is not cannot operate in real time. These surgeries can this kind of a solution cannot operate in a real time basis, and we are looking forward with some of my colleagues are currently working in order to propose some real time solutions for this kind of a scenario. Right. So, and right. So, in a similar sense, right. So, I have a very little experience for firefighting, which is one of the disasters which is there today, right? So, you must have heard of forest fires, Amazon forest fires, and many other scenarios where very recently I've seen one factory getting affected with this fire accident, right? So. And these days, a lot of people are coming up with firefighting drones, and the cameras, or the camera specifically will get obscured when in case of this fire because of the smoke which is there. Okay, and probably what we have done is in the basic study that we have done, the solution that we have proposed in this case in order to remove the smoke. Okay, the similar solution to certain extent it works. Okay, but when the smoke thickens, what can happen here is the cameras might not be a very effective modality that can be used to handle this kind of a disaster. But many other sensors, like Professor Srihari was mentioning about radar sensors in handling the disasters, right? So something like a radar sensor or an infrared sensor or thermal sensors, right? So these are some other forms of sensors, other modalities that we can use in order to avoid these kind of disasters and in some kind of a safety critical applications, right? So so this is another a brief experience that I have in handling, right? So when we are deploying these vision-guided or AI-based systems in a safety-critical applications, so it's very important that they possess few important characteristics. Okay, so the reason for me to put up this specific slide is I've been reading a review a couple of days back, right? And I've been listening to a podcast also today morning, and it says that only 2.7% of the AI, the publications which are produced during the pandemic of using AI in the healthcare systems are mature enough. That means only 2.7% of the research which has been done during this pandemic in AI for healthcare is mature enough to be used or is of clinically relevant. That is the exact term that that specific review paper says, right? That means the doctors are still not yet trusting these AI systems. Rather, in few countries, they still prefer a manual mode of doing a kind of a medical diagnosis. Okay, in few countries, even this medical diagnosis, for performing this medical diagnosis, you cannot use, you're not permitted to use these AI systems. Okay, because of the lack of trust. But if you want to build this trust, or if you want to produce more research, or a clinically relevant research, or propose more solutions which are more clinically relevant, and which can be used very well in the practical context, right? So if we want to do that, then our AI systems should be trusted enough by the medical community first, as the first step. Okay, and what federated learning. In the next few slides, I'll talk briefly about my experience in generalizable AI systems, as well as visibility, or what kind of equalities that these AI systems, artificial intelligence systems, need to possess in order to increase the trust among the medical community, so that they can be practically used. Okay. And this is one of the research problems which I have been currently working on. I come from a Lincoln agri-robotics team. I have an experience of working in medical images as well. Recently, we have proposed a novel solution for the BRATS challenge, BRATS 2021 challenge, which is a part of the brain tumor segmentation challenge, as a part of MICAI 2021 conference. Of course, but my main research is on building generalizable AI systems. Okay, and the application currently which I'm working on is detection of weakheads. So the scenario is this: you have we have to build a system which can detect the weakheads, irrespective of what kind of a countries they come from, or what kind of a lighting variations, in spite of different lighting variations that they have. So if you see here, the test set, the weakheads which are there, the tests in the test set are completely different from what was provided during the training, while training these AI systems. Okay, and it would be unless and until I am building an AI system which can be generalized to multiple countries, and with respect to multiple lighting variations, I will not be able to perform well in this new scenarios which were not provided during the training systems, during the training process. Okay, so I have to. The goal here is to build, AI systems which can detect the weak specific features rather than the domain specific features, right? So this is on a top overview. If anybody is further interested in understanding more about this specific work, I would be more than happy to discuss. But what is the more difficult, or what is preventing the medical community to trust these AI systems? One aspect is spurious correlations. Let me explain what is meant by spurious correlations with a simple example. Okay, these are the couple of images that I have picked up from the pixels.com. Okay, so I have, suppose say I'm building a system which is aimed to detect cows. Okay, but if I'm training my system by using the images in which the cow is grazing on a green grass, or if a cow is moving on a green grass. Okay, and definitely what can happen is, whenever there is a green grass, the system will tend to learn the presence of a green grass as a presence of the cows. Okay, so that means my system is not capturing the features related to cows just with the presence of the green grass. If my system is telling me that the animal which is present in the image And the other reason, the other aspect, or the other key, or the other quality that these AI systems need to possess is the explainability. Suppose say it has taken a decision by seeing a CT scan image or an X-ray image that that this specific patient has a COVID, or this specific patient doesn't have a COVID. Then my AI system, if it has an ability to explain itself why it has taken a certain decision, or why it has assigned a certain classification label as COVID or non-COVID infection or a COVID infection. So if it can explain the reason behind its decision, right? So then that increases the trust. Okay, suppose say this is an example which was performed. This is an example which shows an experiment performed by Professor Alexander Wong from the University of Waterloo, who has created the COVIDNet architecture, right? So I have taken it. This is a snapshot. I've taken it from this lecture, which is given in this darwinai.news/FNY website, right? If you see here, the highlighted regions are the regions which are used by the AI system that they have developed initially in order to classify whether a specific person has a COVID or non-COVID. Okay, without seeing lungs, without looking at the regions where the lungs are present, okay, this AI system was telling whether a specific person has a COVID or non-COVID. Okay, so this is a dangerous situation to be, right? So you cannot trust this kind of a system, right? So you want to trust a system which is examining the lungs, okay, and identifying the key features of the infection first, and then deciding whether a specific person has a COVID or non-COVID. Okay, so my AI system should be explainable enough, or it should have a good explainability aspect in order to express itself well, and then that increases the trust among the medical community. So all this research is in very basic nascent stages. But there is a lot of scope to build upon, and a lot of startups these days are focusing on explainability, especially the ones which are coming in the medical imaging community, right? And right, so the other area is the federated learning, because the key aspect, the reason behind this for me to have this slide here is the data sets. Suppose say everybody who is working in artificial intelligence needs some form of a data, right? So from the patients, okay? And one of the biggest challenge with medical imaging data here is it is highly private, okay? It's the privacy needs to be protected. The privacy of the patient needs to be protected. And the other aspect here is the data can't be easily shared among multiple people, and it cannot be an open source data set or something like an ImageNet or the other images that we get on the website freely available, right? So we cannot have such kind of an setup here for the medical imaging due to the privacy restrictions, right? So suppose say I have worker A, worker B, worker C, and these are here in each of these hospitals for COVID diagnosis. And there is one server which is constantly in touch with it. All right. So, and what kind of an architecture what kind of an architecture is very good for COVID detection using chest X-ray images? Suppose say this model server will decide, and then this model server will communicate that specific information to these individual workers first. Okay, and then these individual models get trained in this individual hospitals itself, and so that the data is not shared. However, what they will do here after the model is getting got trained in these individual hospitals, the model information, the trained model information is sent back to this server. Okay, and now you have an AI system which got built in these individual hospitals, and you get to collect this information back in the server, and then by using this information coming from these individual hospitals, it tries to do some kind of an averaging and then builds a model, a universal model on top of which can generalize well on all these three models, right? So this is a kind of an aggregation, getting information indirectly about the classification part, but but the model server does not have an access about individual data coming from these hospitals, ABC, right? So this we call it as a federated learning. This is also in very, very nascent stages, and people are working people have started working just now, right? So this is another thing. And concluding my talk, right? So if you see here, explainability is very crucial for us to build generalizable AI systems, right? So because in order to build the trust, right? So the AI system should explain itself on why it has taken a certain decision, right? So right, that will improve the chances of whatever AI system that you have built that can be easily be used in the medical community itself, right? So whatever research that you are doing will be useful for the medical community. They'll be able to trust more on whatever research that you're building, right? And an effective federated continual learning systems are needed for medical imaging scenario because of the data privacy concerns, right? So we need key qualities that I have mentioned for the AI systems need to be processed. Is applied only to the medical imaging, but it's equally applicable to other disaster or the safety critical applications. The current AI system doesn't have this, are not being person publications, whatever have been produced in the last 1 year during the pandemic time were found to be having high clinical relevance, right? And AI should be more focused to analyze the benefit to patient rather than just seeing the improvement in accuracy, right? So maybe we publish a paper, and as a research committee, we publish a paper and see maybe over the existing state-of-the-art methods, we have a better DICE score or a better Jaccard coefficient, right? So, but one of the key questions that you need to ask yourself is the research that we are doing, is it really helpful for the patient out there, right? So can it help in a better diagnosis or not is the key question that we need to ask. And there's a lot of scope of improvement in that specific direction, right? And my sincere acknowledgements to Professor A.N. Rajagopalan, IIT Madras, and he's the one who imparted, from whom I have learned how to do a good research, and Dr. Jayavardhan Gubbi from TCS RNA Labs, from whom I have learned about deep learning a lot, right? How to think or how to propose very good solutions in terms of deep learning, or how to do a good research in deep learning. And Dr. Petra, who is my current supervisor at University of Lincoln, and Professor Mehboob Basha and NIDM team for giving me this opportunity. Last but not the least, my wife, Dr. Sankirtana B, who is a current postdoctoral research scholar here at the University of Lincoln. She is working in materials chemistry specialization, and she is the one who gave me, after Professor Mehboob Basha has contacted me, she has given me lots and lots of information related to the technologies used in this pandemic time, right? So there were several things, and in order to organize this presentation well, she was one of the key, she is a key player actually, right? So I should say my sincere thanks to her as well. And right, so thank you for your kind attention. And if there are any further queries, I would be more than happy to take up at this point. And this is my email ID in case if anyone would like to connect with me for your research work. And if you need any specific inputs, I would be more than happy to help you out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Karthik sir. I request all the participants, any participants who are having any queries regarding to the discussion or regarding to computer vision or specialization of Dr. Karthik sir, you can speak. Is there any queries from participants? Okay. Giving the feedback. Actually, sir, their participants, tomorrow we are going to do the feedback link for 3 days. And that will be the actually it is an essential thing as per our NIDM specifications. Okay. Okay, sir. Really, Dr. Karthik Sengupta, sir, thank you for your kind words. Actually, we are very lucky, and our participants and our institute is very lucky to have a wonderful person who is working on computer vision, as well as a supportive personality. That what I can say about you, sir. Really, when your speech now, whatever you have told, you have quite interestingly correlated and you have connected the medical field with our technology and how the medical field is going to utilize our technological scope in image processing or computer vision or in the diagnosis or in emerging kits, there's a testing kits or something else. Really, we are very much thankful to you, sir. And as per the procedure, I have to give the vote of thanks to all the resource persons today. And first, I have to thank Dr. P. Srihari sir, Assistant Professor of NIT Surathkal, Department of UC, for giving his how the technology has been evaluated and from ranging from 1G to 5G, which we are experiencing. And what are the various inputs on drone technology and radar sensing technology, how you are utilizing as given as presentation. And my sincere thanks to Dr. Lokesh sir, Dr. P. Lokesh Nang, and energetic doctor in the field of ENT. I have listened about lot about him. Whenever he enters into the surgical, that is operation theater, single-handed is the best surgeon as per the JIPMER authorities, what I have. And talking about you, sir, really, Dr. Karthik Sengupta sir is highly energetic and he's very cooperative and he's having wonderful knowledge. And that is, he's always he's instrumental in the thing. And, very because we know that he's very busy with their schedules because he's a postdoctoral associate in foreign universities. They are very much hectic schedule. Certainly, sir has accepted because he wants to share his knowledge to various academicians and industrial persons. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
It's my pleasure, sir. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. And kind words, thank you once again. And with this vote of thanks, I am going to conclude the session. Is there any queries from participants? Okay. Hope we'll meet tomorrow at 2:30 for the last and final day. And we will have the valedictory session. The 3:45. Sir, I am from this class. I am inviting you, Dr. Karthik Sengupta sir. If time allows you to join tomorrow at 3:45, please join in our valedictory session. I will send the link also, sir. If possible.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, sir. Shall I end the meeting, sir?
Yeah, sure, sir.
There are all the participants. We are going to leave this meeting at this stage. Thank you all.